White tried queen c2, and after queen h4, bishop f3. As you can see, black already has many pieces in the attack. If we count them, we can see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces in the attack, and white has only about 1, 2, 3 defenders. So we can say that white is being outnumbered here. And for that reason, it's time to strike. And Vidit played in the game a very nice tactical shot, knight b4. The thing is that after a takes b4, black could play here bishop takes f3. And as you can see, the white rook is overloaded in its defensive functions. So after rook takes f3, that will follow rook e1 check, and king g2, queen takes h2 is made. For that reason, in the game, they played here bishop d5, desperate counterattack. However, after bishop takes f3, rook takes f3, knight takes e2, bishop takes h4, knight takes a1, knight takes a1, rook a2. Black is winning a lot of material, so white resigned at this point. Summing up, it's very important in this structure to know about the d5 thrust. In the game, Vidit played rook e8, and after g4, he was ready to play d5. Key move in this structure. Now let's have a look at another key idea for black in this structure, the f5 advance. As you can see, in this typical position from the Sicilian Sveshnikov, black is slightly ahead in development in this game between Berg with the white pieces and Moisenko playing black. Moisenko hurried to play here f5 before white is fully developed. White replied with bishop c4, clever move in order to develop the bishop with a threat, so black had to take a tempo to play here king h8. Here probably what white should have played was simply e takes f5, and after bishop takes f5, castles, I think the position would be more or less equal here. Black has the bishop pair, strong bishop pair, but at the same time white keeps control of the crucial d5 square. So I think any result would be possible here. However, in the game, instead after king h8, white played castles straight away. Probably the idea that white had in mind was that after f takes e4, they could go now knight e3. The idea that white has in mind here is to attack the pawn on d6 and at the same time threaten bishop d5, targeting the black queen and the black rook. Unfortunately, black in the game found a very nice counter resource here. They played the move queen b6. In this way, as you can see, the queen gets out of this exposed diagonal, and at the same time they are protecting the pawn on d6. When white played bishop d5, black could have considered to play simply bishop b7. However, in that case, white probably wouldn't think twice about taking on b7 and play queen d5. Even if white is a pawn down here, they would very much like to go for an endgame, because after queen takes d5, knight takes d5, as you can see, again, white has a kind of dream scenario here. The knight is very strong, and this is, so to speak, black's bad bishop. So probably that makes up for the minus pawn. However, in the game, Moisenko was not interested in reaching that endgame. Instead, he played here the very strong move, bishop a6. And now it's clear what black is doing here. Black, thanks to the move f5, has very strong pressure along the f-file. We have an idea of taking on e3, and we should even consider a timely sacrifice on f2, because in this way, basically all black's pieces would wake up and white's king would become very exposed. In the game, white played here rook e1. There was no time to take on a8, because in that case, black would take on f1. As you can see, white's position collapses here. Let's say bishop takes e4, simply bishop takes e3. And if white takes on e3, black would take with the queen and pick up the bishop on e4. So in the game, after bishop a6, instead, white played here rook e1. It appears as if white keeps everything under control, but just like we were saying, the f-file is an extremely important part of the board in this structure, and black didn't think twice about a very nice sacrifice, rook takes f2. Really nice way of punishing white here. If white takes on f2, black wouldn't give check immediately, because in that case the king could go back and hide on h1. Much stronger would be to play here bishop takes e3 first, so that white would have to make a choice here, take or not take. So if they take, well, then we would give check on f8 and pick up the rook. Then black is simply winning, because there is coming rook f1 next turn. So white would have to play, instead of king g1, king g3. But as you can see, after rook f8, black would just have a fantastic attack here. Just one threat in this position would be to play bishop f2, but there are other ideas here also for black. Perhaps the queen could be rerouted to the king side, for example. Anyway, after the move rook takes f2, white tried bishop takes a8, and after bishop takes e3, king h1, black noticed that apart from the attack, actually they have several pawns in the center, and white has none. That means that black could play here bishop d2. Nice move, because after rook g1, black is ready to go e3 with a very nice advantage. As you can see, there are already sacrifices in the air. Black could try to play e2 followed by rook f1, for example. So basically, black is winning here. And he later on went on to win. Summing up, very important idea in this structure, f7, f5 push. This idea of playing f5 is really important here. You can do it straight away. In some positions, black also prefers to play first g6 and only then f5, depending on the circumstances. Here, black played f5 and it worked out very well after bishop c4, king h8, castles, f takes e4, knight e3, and queen b6, key move in order to start a decisive counterattack after bishop d5, bishop a6. Let's have a look at another idea for white. As you can see in this typical Najdorf position in the game between Karyakin with white and Giri with black, it was not so easy for Sergei Karyakin to progress in this position. For example, the knight on g3 is very far away from the outpost on d5. So it might be possible to play something like rook ft1 and try to bring the knight from g3 to f1, play bishop f2, knight e3, and so on. However, in the game, Karyakin went for a more practical plan. He played here knight d5. As you can see, after bishop takes d5, if black takes with the knight, now we can see that the knight is very useful on g3, preventing black from playing bishop f5. So after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, we have the other structure that we were discussing. As you can see, white no longer has a stronghold on d5. There is no weak pawn on d6 really to speak about. However, on the other hand, what white has achieved here is a queenside pawn majority. So the plan for white is clear here. Try to advance those pawns. So I think that was a good choice by Karyakin in this game. Here black played knight c5. This is a very logical move, but probably taking into account that they have a kingside pawn majority, it would make sense here to play something like h5. Later on, play knight h7 and try to push f5. I guess this would have been black's most promising plan here. However, in the game, they played knight c5, intending to play knight e4 at some moment. So Karyakin played here simply f3. A very good restrictive move. Black replied with h5, and here, of course, white took the chance to advance on the queen side by means of b4, and after knight e7, c4. As you can see, already the idea of pushing c5 has become a little more realistic for white. Black tried h4, and after knight e4, h3, trying to create some counterplay on the king side. We could perhaps take that pawn, but I think what Karyakin played in the game was much more practical, simply g3. Now sometimes this pawn on h3 might become a weakness as well. Black tried knight takes e4, f takes e4, and knight f6, targeting the pawn on e4. White defended by means of queen d3, and there followed queen d7. Giri has in mind to play here knight g4, followed by f5, creating counterplay. And here the game went rook ac1, and there were some complications, but later on white managed to win. However, I think I found a simpler way to react with white here. I think a very good move here would have been the prophylactic king h1. So that when black plays knight g4, we are ready to hide our bishop on g1. As you can see, the bishop is very well placed there. It's still on the same diagonal where it's supporting the c4, c5 advance. Let's say black continues here with rook f8 in order to go f5 next turn. Definitely this would be a good moment for white to play c5. It turns out that now if black takes on c5, white can play d6. Tactics work for white here. The thing is that the black queen is busy protecting the knight on g4, so it cannot take on d6. And also we cannot take with the bishop on d6, because in that case white could play b takes c5, taking advantage of the pin along the d file. So after d6, black would have to play bishop d8 instead, and white would simply play here b takes c5 with a huge positional advantage. Summing up, if we look at this initial position, it was not so easy for white to work on the d5 weakness here. It was not so easy to bring the knight to d5. So for that reason, Karyakin opted for a much more practical choice. He played here knight e5, transposing to the other structure with a queenside pawn majority, so that after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, he would soon be able to play c4, followed by b4, rook ac1, and hopefully c5, using his queenside pawn majority. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for watching. You can leave comments below. Thanks, and see you next time.